What's good, everybody? Hinterland Vegas, live and direct and live. I want to make a video about a quarterback in college, a young man named Andrew Body. He started out at Texas Southern University in the Houston area in Texas, and then he matriculated in the transfer portal and landed at Alabama State. Then jumped back into the Alabama. I'm sorry, to jump back into the transfer portal just to remain at Alabama State. And I'm here to talk about why him coming back to Alabama State for his last year is a big mistake. I've seen a lot of people in HBCU football, they suffer from this syndrome. And this syndrome is what I like to call uh, past glory syndrome. Um, a lot of people are excited that Andrew Body's coming back to um, Alabama State. If you guys don't know who he is, he's a young man from Texas that I think like closer to like South Texas, where he held like numerous records to the state. One of the best statistically, and for one reason or another, I feel like he was under recruited and went to Texas Southern, which wasn't a good program. Still not a great program, and had a couple good seasons. Has been injury prone in his career. Transferred to Alabama State, and I think his first year at Alabama State, he immediately got injured in the game because one, the way that he was used was just terrible. Um, but I'm gonna get on that a little later. The reason why it's a mistake for him to come back to Alabama State is this: Alabama State plays in the SWAC conference. Um, there's two conferences that HBCUs have within the FCS division, which is the SWAC and the meac. And they happen to be two of the weaker conferences. Another one that's comparable would be like the Pioneer Conference because they don't have any scholarships. So I'm not just saying because their HBCUs is weaker. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is this: if you look at the schedules for HBCUs, more so the SWAC, they tend to play each other, or they might slide over and play a meac school. And then they'll play like some Division II rivalries from old rivalries from like literally 60, 70 years ago. There's no longer relative, on the football field. But they still draw and sell tickets because these are cousins, aunts, brothers, sisters that go to some of these universities. So with Alabama State, they'll do something like schedule Tuskegee every Thanksgiving. And what that does, like it did last year with Alabama State, is that keeps you away from playoff contention. Granted, HBCUs they aim for the Chitlin Bowl. The Celebration Bowl every year in Atlanta. Um, so it's the best school from the MEAC and from the SWAC, and they play in a so-called national title game, which is really a bi-conference championship. Um, but that's neither here or there. Uh, Conference schedule, and the non-conference schedule is usually weak because, like I said, you only play each other. You don't play some of the better programs in the FCS, like the North Dakotas, the Illinois States, the Villanovas. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people will argue against my point and saying the white man's ice isn't colder. This has nothing to do with trying to appease the white people or to the white ice. If you understand historically, um, in my honest opinion, when things were desegregated, it was the worst thing that happened to HBC football. Um, at one point in time, the best teams in the 19, and this goes back to the past glory part, like in the I'll say from like the 30s to like to the '80s, like to the early '80s. I would say would be the highlight of black college football, meaning that those were some of the greatest teams, bar none. You know what I'm saying? That were ever in college football. But when desegregation happened, um, like later on at that point, it kind of stripped away the talent pool because back then, and just like today, you had the bigger programs like Alabama, USC, Tennessee, like big schools like that. They will offer, allegedly side deals and money and pay these players to go to their school, or just for a simple fact of them having bigger television deals and playing against bigger schools, which would increase the likelihood of someone getting drafted. Now, granted, during this glory time, HBCU players did get drafted. Um, I looked it up myself. There was a ton of guys, a ton of Hall of Famers. South Carolina State has more Hall of Famers than a lot of BCS schools. You understand what I'm saying? Jackson State has uh, some Hall of Famers. You know what I'm saying? From Jackie Slater, Walter Payton. Um, I think Jimmy Smith should be coming up if he isn't one already. Um, it's a lot of guys. Too Tall Jones, if I'm not mistaken, he went to I forget what school he went to, but I think he did go to HBCU. But at any point, when you're going up to like the '80s, like the later '80s, '90s, the talent pool is going down, but there's still talent there. So you'll see guys like a Jimmy Smith, you'll see McNair. He'll get drafted because again, there's still the leftover talent that's still there. As you progress to the early 2000s, now you're starting to see around 2001 where for the first time like less than five guys were drafted in a year. So as you can see, the numbers per year for HBCU since 2001 has been wildly inconsistent, and also not as high. Reason being is because for the last 40, 50 years, guys want to play at bigger schools because, again, bigger television deals, more exposure, um, better resources, whether over or under the table. In today's game with the NIL, everything's on the table. So it's just more money to be made. It's just more exposure to be had. So you're going to have more talent because of that. Matter of fact, Alabama, I think it was 1970, around that time, they played USC, and USC beat the dog crap out of them. And Paul Bear Bryant was like, "We need to get, some of the brothers, you know, and that's how that kind of started." So what I'm trying to say is this, you know, Andrew Body when he first went to Texas Southern, first and foremost, I felt like he was an FBS quarterback, like a mid-major type of quarterback. But it was a bad program, but he shined through. Was almost everything in the SWAC. Electric player, can throw, can run, um, humble kid. I just felt like he got some bad advice, throughout his whole college career in terms of where to go. Because when he left Texas Southern, he went to Alabama State, which was a huge gamble because their head coach, Eddie Robinson, another guy, you know, he played at Alabama State himself, went to have a good career in the NFL with the Oilers and a couple other teams. Um, he's a newer coach. They're not great on offense. Um, they're it's not really friendly for the type of quarterback that Andrew is. Somebody that would do well in a offense where he can use his gifts, both running and passing. They tried to use him as a glorified running back his first year. He got hurt, and it was a serious injury. Year after that, he bounced back and had a great year. But again, the offense was shaky. If it wasn't for Andrew Body, that offense is shaky at best. Just be real with you. But he had some weapons, and in this past season, um, what I noticed was like, hey, so he had a couple guys transfer to different places. Um, they still had a good year, but because Alabama State, they every year schedule Tuskegee. Tuskegee University is a Division II team that's not even a good football team, but it's a historic rivalry that brings in a ton of money and is a highly regarded game for a lot of the older alumni, from both schools. But what I feel like a lot of HBCU fans don't understand is no such thing as HBCU football. You're just teams that are HBCUs that play football, but you're still in the FCS subdivision, meaning that you might have um, three good teams in a SWAC, and one team they win the whole thing, they go in the Celebration Bowl, plays South Carolina State or somebody. You know what I'm saying? So that leaves, like a couple other teams, like a Jackson State or a Prairie View. Uh, I feel like we might have another one coming up between possibly Southern if they get their, you know, selves together, or it could be Grambling. It's going to be one of those schools that's going to be like that third school. So a lot of other conferences in FCS, they have multiple teams go to the playoffs. Like the MEAC and the SWAC are lucky to have one. Because first of all, you're starting off from second place on down. But what happened with Alabama State, their schedule was so weak this past year. Like they played Tuskegee, and they'll never be able to get in the playoffs because it's on Thanksgiving Day. That game is on Thanksgiving Day. Just like, and then let me correct myself, because Southern and Grambling, they can't go to the playoffs because of the fact that they play their game, what I'm saying, the Bayou Classic. So it just HBCUs in general with the SWAC conference, something needs to be done where these games need to be earlier in the year. That way, in a situation, because it's going to happen, because the SWAC for a while and the MEAC too has been on a downswing. And right about that time, when I mentioned 2001, I'll say like a few years after that, like I'll say around 2000, not a few years, I'll say 2007, 2008. Uh, I feel like that was like the lowest in terms of like the quality of football that we had from the last from 2008 to I want to say just this past year, like before the season before this past year, because I feel like HBC football is on an uptick because there's better coaches than there have been the last few years. So it's just that people have to realize that it's not the 60s and the 70s where Grambling is beating, FBS teams like it's, another day. It's not the same when FAMU won the real national title in 78, 79, or whenever. It's not the same quality of football. So quite and you got to remember, because like I said, a lot of the players that would be playing for these teams today are at other places. So with the being the mistake, Alabama State can't go to the playoffs, right? So, and I looked at their schedule this year, it's weak as well. They don't play anybody. They just play Troy, but Troy's not even. Troy's is okay FBS team, but realistically, they're not going to beat them. And the problem with Andrew going back to Alabama State is the fact that he's done everything he could do playing at the SWAC level. I mean, because honestly, the only thing to do left is to win the Celebration Bowl. But again, you got to remember, I put it to you like this: if Jackson State is considered the top of the crop when it comes to the SWAC, if Jackson State would have went to the FCS playoffs, and mind you, Jackson State was good enough where they could have went to the Celebration Bowl, or you know what I'm saying, or they was on that around that same level. Is if they would have went in the FCS playoffs, they would have lost by the second round. They might win, depending on where they seated at. They might win the first game, but they definitely going to be out in the second round because the competition is just that serious, and I don't think people really realize um, the the seriousness when it comes to that. They get too lost in the pageantry and like, oh man, we the JSU and we this and that with our school. When really we need to play better competition. If I'm Alabama State, I would have told Andrew not to come back and go to the FBS and get a bag. You know what I'm saying? And really bet on himself. But here's the thing, though. Here's the caveat in this: we do not know what the conversations were between the teams that he talked to. I will acknowledge that because I don't know if he didn't find anything that was like interesting to him. Because it might be like a couple schools that really wanted him, but he might not like the environment. You know what I'm saying? It could have been a situation where, it was just like, okay, we got you and then this other guy that came from somewhere else, and you're not guaranteed to start. And maybe he didn't like that. Maybe he wanted to be in a position where he wanted to start. In my honest opinion, I felt like Andrew should have went to FIU with Willie Simmons because Willie Simmons, he coached in the HBCU environment. He understands the ins and outs of it, how to deal with those type of players, situations, and he also has the background of playing at Clemson, also coaching at Duke, also getting a year coaching at FIU, leading them to a bowl game, and the type of offense that he has is more friendly for his skill set than at Eddie Robinson's. Now, I would say that is a little different because they got the OC that came from Arkansas Pine Bluff, and I heard he's pretty good. So maybe it's a fit there. Maybe that was the thing that attracted him. Like, hey, they got somebody that really know what they're doing from the offensive standpoint. But here's the issue: do you have the personnel? Do you have the personnel? Skill position and offensive line. Will it be worth it for him to come back? I say you don't because it's not guaranteed that y'all gonna go to the Celebration Bowl. Then what? Versus going to, let's say, at FIU, winning that job because the quarterback they had there wasn't good. He wasn't better than Andrew. I feel like there's at least like 3 to 4 places he could have found where he could absolutely know he could walk in as a starter based off his skill set. And FIU, I know for sure, was one of them. And you're playing better competition because they're playing at the FBS level, and they're a decent team. Although they did get mollywhopped at their last game, but that's neither here and there. Um, and you got Florida boys, all around you, man. You could throw a rock and hit somebody that can run a 4.4, 4.2. You know what I'm saying? So like, you're definitely going to have some weapons around you. Um, So I don't know. I thought it was just bad advice because, you know, that was one game last year where he showed what he could do against UAB. But again, remember when I said scheduling was weak? UAB was probably the worst FBS program in the country. So pro scouts could look at it, okay, he got some skills, but then again, they're trash on defense. You know what I'm saying? So he could have like a body of work, pun intended in this case, where he's playing against, several teams in Conference USA. I think that's what they had, Conference USA, and just have something together on film where okay, he did get a Texas Southern, went to a better program in Alabama State, then went to an even higher level of play. So when you're showing like different levels of production in different places, that excites scouts more than anything because of the fact that he's versatile. You know what I'm saying? And two, he'll be compensated better, unless Alabama State, because they do have money, found out a way to make sure he's well compensated. But even still, it's just that the level of play is just very important. If I give you another example, if Shador Sanders never would have left Jackson State, he wouldn't have been drafted. He wouldn't have been drafted. And the reason why I could say that is because he was fifth round. Now, we all know that he's a first round talent. He should have been drafted within the first few picks for sure. But all the BS and nonsense, if that would have carried on like it did at Colorado with Jackson State, he would have been drafted. Because Jackson State didn't play quality competition. They still don't. Uh, and y'all saying y'all love and all this, and y'all playing two junior colleges. I mean, I'm sorry, Division two schools. What are we doing? So it's not about appeasing to the white man. It's about playing better competition where it was. Just like in 1960, during the HBCU heyday, 1970s, you know, it would have been better for some of these other schools to play some of the HBCUs. Why? Because that's where the best football was at the time. But now times have changed. Right now, in 2026, comparatively speaking, with the influx of newer coaches coming in, the competition, in my opinion, is back down. Is back not back down, but back up to like I want to say right before it went back down around 2008, 2009. So it's going back towards the glory days, but on the front end, which is still not good enough where you can play each other and it be counted as legitimate tape compared to other kids that played different conferences, different schools at higher levels. I want the best for HBCUs. I really want for like the SWAC and the MEAC, what I'm saying, to combine in one conference or, they take select schools and they move up to FBS. I want our schools to be at the best, play the best. But we got to start playing better competition because the fact, this is what's going to happen. What's most likely is going to happen is Andrew is going to go to Alabama State and he's going to have a great season. I don't think they're going to get into the Celebration Bowl and they're going to miss the playoffs. No postseason play, no bowl game, none of that because I feel like FAMU is going to be back. I feel like Prairie View is going to be a problem. Schedule like Prairie View, schedule like Morgan State, two schools that went out and schedule better competition to play against. Now Morgan State, they don't get they wig split because they ain't good. Okay. But Prairie View, I believe Prairie View could knock off, one of those tough games that they got coming up. I don't see them beating Baylor, but I definitely see them beating one of the tougher FCS programs that maybe two that they got scheduled coming up. Because you know what that does? If Prairie View, uh, let's say they had the same record last year, you know what I'm saying? What they won like 9 games in the regular season, and for whatever reason, this time they don't go to the Celebration Bowl. They'll go to the playoffs. And let's say they mess around and just ball out and make it to the national title game. And let's say they win a national title game. Here's a question I want y'all to ask yourselves. let's say Jackson State, they make it to the Celebration Bowl, they win it all against Central, right? They're the national champions, right? What a prayer view, because they took the time to schedule better and they got better as they went throughout the season. They got their head stomped in at Baylor, and then they went and played Charleston tough. They may win, they may lose that game, but they win the rest of their games, and they got better each game, and they caught fire like an Illinois State, and they win the national title. Unlike Illinois State, no disrespect to y'all. Who's going to say who's the national title now? Because what black folk gonna do? Be real. If Prairie View win a national title in the FCS, they're gonna be saying they the real national champions. Just like any of y'all. Any of y'all. So let's knock off the talk of, oh, the Celebration Bowl is this or that. It's great that we have it, and stop holding these kids back. Not all, and first of all, it's not an HBCU thing. It's an FCS thing, because there's other schools in the FCS where kids matriculate up to get better opportunity, and it don't work out for them. That happens. But you know what also happens? Kids from the upper level come down to matriculate, and it don't work out. It's all a gamble. But the point is, don't hold our top stars back because you want to be greedy about winning some Chitlin Circuit game or some like classic that nobody cares about but us. You know what I'm saying? When a kid has a legitimate shot of going to the pros, a legitimate shot. And I think it's selfish for y'all to want that kid to come back like that when when clearly his play is of the ilk of the FBS. And it's a shame. And then y'all say you can still get drafted. Sir, how many people got drafted in the last what 7 years, 5 years? You can count on one hand almost. And some years didn't have a draft pick. And McNair and all these other greats, pre 1996, it was at a different time, at a higher level of play. So let's get that noise and take that somewhere else. But that's why I think it's a mistake for him to come back. I do believe that he is capable of having a great season, but come on now, like it's a cap, and y'all don't realize it. It's a reason why. It's a specific reason why. After FAMU won that national title game at 78 or 79, I don't know which year it was. Why it was like the Heritage Bowl and this bowl that the black schools went to and not the FCS players. Some years we did go play, but come on now. You think them folk want to see us in the national title game again? I'll let y'all think about that. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm Hampton Vegas. I'm out.